and is it one that will allow him to have some good success at Carolina? I think the one thing that if you were to land him, you would kind of avoid it. If you're one of those people that's looking to avoid a complete rebuild, that would be a really solid hire for you, because I don't think that there would be a rebuild factor with Mark Turgeon. The biggest problem is he's bringing him in has a pretty high floor, but how high of a ceiling does he actually have if he was to be the coach in Chapel Hill? Don't really think it's all that high.
A guy that I have mentioned as a potential, and he's a long shot, and I'll touch on my long shot, I'll let you touch on yours, and then we'll get out of here, is C.B. McGrath. And while I don't think he'll be the next head coach for the Tar Heels, I do believe without a doubt he'll be on the coaching staff next season. CB played for Roy Williams at Kansas before joining him on the staff in Lawrence, and then followed Roy to Chapel Hill, where he served on the staff for over a decade before leaving for UNCW. Now, upon taking the job at UNCW, Kevin Keats, the now head coach at NC State, had taken that program to back-to-back trips to the NCAA tournament. So at the time, they were riding high, but the departure of Kevin Keats meant a lot of players departing out of the program, including going to NC State, made that job a complete rebuild. CB never really got anything established there. Got let go during his third season after a 5-14 start. And this year, started showing back up in Chapel Hill. He's been doing some work with Carolina, the Carolina Insider podcast, and doing some production work and doing some stuff like that. Just being back in the building, back around basketball, leading me to believe that he was going to be put on the staff next season. So that's why he's a long shot. I don't think he's going to be the head coach, but I do think he'll be back on the staff. And I mentioned, we talked about how player development's been really down the last couple of years. I don't think that was a coincidence once he departed, while player development seemed to decline after he left to become a head coach. Needless to say, the program would just benefit greatly from him being back on the staff in some coaching role. Your long shot is a guy that's currently on the bench right now, and that's Sean May, a guy that has worked the ways of getting into the coaching game. He started from the bottom, and like Drake likes to say, he got to where he is now. Started from the bottom, now he's here as a long shot candidate to be the next head coach of the Tar Heels. So I'll let you dive in on why you would like to see him potentially the next head coach for Carolina basketball.
Well, it's definitely time to wrap this thing, because you just attempted to quote a Drake lyric and absolutely.
That was my Iron Eagle, body, yaddy, 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 yaddy kind of version thing right there.
Okay. All right. Yeah, with Sean May, I think it really just goes back to, if you go back and watch the All Access show from last year around Carolina basketball, the way that he talks about the program, the way that he talks about Williams, I put it in the article. He just gets it. He understands everything about what it is to be a coach at Carolina, what it would be to be the head coach at North Carolina. And he talks about Roy Williams in a very similar way to how Roy Williams talked about Dean Smith.
Right.
He's a guy that under everything that Roy Williams has done and is doing even to this day. He's a guy that I think would come in and have the same type of humility. He would tell you right out, I'm not going to be better than Roy Williams. It's not going to happen. I'm going to be my own coach. I'm going to do a lot of the things that Roy did. I'm going to keep a lot of those things in place. But he would be a guy that would be extremely humble and would never admit that he's a better coach than Roy Williams. So if you want a guy that is similar in mindset, similar in mantra to Roy Williams, that's one of the guys that I think should be considered. I mean, look, he's had success in his time at Carolina. He's helped coach the big men, and the big men have definitely been the most successful part of this team over the last couple of years. I mean, you got to think he's been there, probably, I think this is sixth year at Carolina, which is hard to believe that he's already been there 6 years. But in his time there, he's helped the development of Bryce Johnson, Isaiah Hicks, Kennedy Meeks, even in more recent years here, Garrison Brooks, and even some of the guys this year with Day'Ron Sharp and Walker Kessler. So I definitely think that, he's a guy that would, just be a humongous risk. I mean, we're talking about taking a risk with Wes Miller Hubert Davis. That would be, and he's just a monumental risk to hire him. And I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I with CB. I don't see any way that would actually happen. I think, if anything, he's going to be promoted up the bench. Whether Hubert is the guy that takes over the job or not, I could definitely see him taking on a bigger role under whoever the next head coach is. But I think that, just the reason I put him on that list was just hearing the way that he talked about the program and the way that he talked about Roy gave me vibes similar to the way that reading Roy Williams' book, hearing him over the years talk about Dean Smith and the program, it was very, very similar, and that's the reason why I had the long shot on the list. I mean, look, there are other names that have been mentioned as well. A lot of them, I think, are really just speculation. But I think that, again, it's this is one of, if not the most prestigious job in college athletics. So Carolina is they're going to have, I'm not going to say the pick of the litter, because I do think that there are some guys, like we mentioned, that may tell them no. But pretty much, if there's a guy that you're passionate about out there, they are at least going to take your phone call. They may eventually tell you no. But this is not a job, even like the football job, we talked about that a few years ago, before Mac Brown got hired to take over. This is not a job that you're going to be concerned, we're not going to be able to find. When you make that phone call, that phone is going to be answered, and you are going to land one of your top candidates. It's just, at this point, it's really tough to try to figure out who's the brass right now is trying to target. And again, there's a group of them doing. Bubba Cunningham is a guy that is willing to let some people, in on the decision, including Roy Williams. He's going to take what they are, what they recommend into high standards. But at the same time, this is a guy in Bubba Cunningham that I feel like is going to make a decision in his own mind as well, and I respect him for that. I understand that he's the athletic director. He's got to make a decision, and he is going to take, a lot of people's considerations into his own mind. But in the end, it's going to be his decision, and I feel pretty confident that he is going to make the right decision when it's all said and done.
Yeah, we will definitely see how this situation does play out. That's our look at the coaching search as Carolina is looking for a new head basketball coach. We've always thought, and we talked about on this podcast, that having this conversation would come down the line, and here it is. We're having it now, and it's been a rough 48 hours or so as Carolina fans, just kind of dealing with the retirement of our idol and a guy that we've all looked up to in many different ways as the head basketball coach of the Tar Heels, and it's been really surreal. It's been the word that I've put on whenever I had to talk about this, because I never thought I'd be doing this off season, and so it's a unique time. It's a fun time in some ways, and once the dust settles and we can look back on what Roy Williams accomplished, stuff like that, and embrace a new journey with a new coach, it'll be something that we will appreciate down the road. So with that, we'll get you guys out of here. Before we let you go, talk to you about the website HeelToughBlog.com. You can go there to find the full breakdown article of me and Anthony's top candidates for the coaching search. Sarah Wiley, our other basketball writer, has her opinion up there, as well as we've got you covered wall to wall as Carolina is going through the process of finding the successor to Roy Williams. We talked a lot about Bubba Cunningham's press conference from the other night. I wrote an article about what he's looking for in the next head coach. If you missed that, go check that out as well. My thank you letter to Roy Williams is up there, and also just the overall announcement of Roy Williams' retirement. You can get all that on HeelToughBlog.com. We also got you covered football and baseball-wise, as the football team is still going through spring practice. The baseball team is down in Tallahassee. I know they won Game 1. I don't know how they did in Game 2, but we'll have you covered on both those fronts as well, with an understanding that for the foreseeable future, this will be a basketball-heavy driven site for the little bit, as this is one of the biggest moments in Tar Heel athletics history as they try to find someone to replace the legendary Roy Williams. And lastly, we want to encourage you guys to rate, review, and ultimately subscribe to the podcast. You can find us on every major podcasting feed. Give me a like, and a review. Review me as the host, review Anthony as the host. We want you guys to subscribe. That way you get every great interview, every great episode like this one right there in your podcast library. Well, with that, I want to thank Anthony for staying up late on a Saturday night to talk a little Carolina basketball. I want to thank you guys for listening. And as always, go Tar Heels.